with the first pick, the number one pick.
Well, here we are, and we're certainly all glad to be here. My name is Daron Sutton, alongside national crosscheckers Daron Sakowski and Vinnie Cervino. Where we sit in the summertime, just past the longest day of the year, is almost to the draft, July 17th, 18th, and 19th, right heading into the MLB All-Star Game. So it's time for these two men who have seen these players, some since 13, 14 years old, to tell us who they would pick. Brian, thanks for hanging. Vinny, thanks for hanging. I'm really excited to learn where you guys would go. As you look at the big picture of this draft, one theme I think is interesting is there may be 3 or 4 guys with TJ that go on night one, Tommy John surgery. But for you guys, Brian, give me one theme that is kind of, as you've prepared for this, jumped out for you.
The quality of the prep bats at the top has to be number one. I think there's a chance that the first 4 picks are prep bats this year. We've seen a lot of these guys. Sut, you have, we all have for many, many years. Some of the names that you're going to hear first as we get going in this, but that's got to be the funnest part of it for me. Has been those guys continuing to battle for the top and continuing to grow and evolve as players.
Vinny, your thoughts, big picture thoughts.
Yeah, just the way that we moved the draft back to the middle of July has really given Omaha and the College World Series almost another level of importance. Guys that we'll probably see later on in the broadcast here, but guys that are making more and more for themselves as they continue their runs in Omaha.
So here are the rules of this mock draft. You gentlemen are selecting for yourselves. You've seen these players in some cases as much as the teams have seen these players. So you're not trying to represent the team per se and what they might do. You're picking who you want at your pick. You guys will alternate picks. We'll shake that up just a little bit because of the Mets. Crosstalk is encouraged, certainly, although we're going to try and keep this show under 2 days once we edit it down. But crosstalk back and forth is encouraged. So let's get things going. The number 1 overall pick belongs to the Baltimore Orioles, Daron Sakowski. Because you were the winner of Perfect Games Fantasy Football League, you get to pick first, my friend. Brian, you're on the clock. Go for it.
Finally, I get to recoup my winnings from that. But anyways, Elijah Green is the pick for us here for Baltimore. We think he's the best player in the draft. I think he's the best player in the draft. I think the upside is absurd. I think that he's proven that he's a surer bet to reach it than first initially thought. I think even if he hits his median outcome, he's an above-average Major League player. So going with him.
Elijah Green, a perfect game All-American, ran a 6.16 at PG National. IMG, Miami commit, probably won't make it there because guys like Brian have him going number 1 out of Windermere, Florida. Vinny, you're up next. You're representing the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's been fun to see Alek Thomas get to the big leagues this year. Corbin Carroll's right behind him. PG guys, you are picking second. The Diamondbacks have that pick. Who do you select?
The Diamondbacks will be taking Drew Jones from Georgia. Like Brian mentioned a little bit earlier, we think the top 4 preps in the class are the top 4 players in the class. And not only do we expect them to go in that order, if the draft were held tomorrow, I think I would probably be a little bit shocked if we don't follow that order. Maybe not necessarily to a T, but I mean, I have to think the first 4 are going to go in this order. Jones is a dynamic center fielder. He's kind of one of the more safer bets as a prep, which is kind of crazy to say. He's a very good glove, good runner, good plus arm. He hits for both average and power. I think it's going to be a very high floor for Drew, who has the potential to play for a long time.
A perfect game All-American, Swanee, Georgia. Of course, Andrew Jones, double-digit Gold Glove winner, a legendary player, Andrew Jones. A Vanderbilt commit out of Wesleyan High School. Drew Jones goes second in our draft to the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Rangers will select third in the draft on the July 17th pick. Brian, you represent the Rangers at 3. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the prep bat theme here. I had assumed Vinny would go Jones there at 2, so that fits with what I'd thought for the Rangers here all along. I'm going to go with Jackson Holliday, left-handed hitting shortstop from Stillwater High School in Oklahoma. Obviously, the son of Matt Holliday, had shot up the board as much as anybody this spring. I think that anybody who'd watched him kind of had him in the first round range coming in. Now he's a potential 1-1 candidate. Had an unbelievable year as far as statistics go. The makeup's off the charts. He's a good athlete. The powers come on. It's a great left-handed swing. I mean, Vinny, help me out with this. When was the last time we saw a prep bat come from that far back into the top 3? Has it ever happened?
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to remember because I think, like we've talked about before, I think we all kind of had a first round grade on Jackson Holiday after the last summer circuit. Caps it off with PGL American. And then he just kind of took massive strides forward this spring. I think we've had guys kind of come from that behind the pack to first round notoriety in the past few years recently. But to go from kind of consensus back end first round to consensus might be the best player in the class is kind of rare.
So it's interesting. His carpool mate heading to high school is his younger brother, Ethan. Ethan is 16, but doesn't have his license yet, rides with brother, thinks the world of brother. And what's intriguing to all of our fans of the future of the sport, many, including you guys, say Ethan may end up skewing higher and may be a superior, especially at this age, player. Great. That's great fun. So Jackson Holiday goes to the Rangers at number 3. Pittsburgh Pirates on the clock. Vinny, you say what?
Now I'm going to throw him a curveball at some point. It's not going to be this pick. I'm going to take Tamar Johnson at number 4. I think it's a pretty good combination of both absolutely somebody I want on my team, coupled with something that we're kind of hearing a little bit as we get closer to the draft. Pirates like Tamar Johnson, but what's not to like about Tamar Johnson? He can hit for power. Most seem to think he'll kind of land on second base when he gets into pro ball. I don't think it's as much a guarantee as some others think, but I think regardless, you're buying a very good bat here, a left-handed bat with juice to all fields. It's going to hit for average and power. As far as prep hit tools, it's one of the more polished in recent years. There's no question about it.
Brian, what have you seen him grow? Where have you seen him grow the most, let's say in the last 6 months?
I think it's important to understand that he didn't have an easy spring. Tamar didn't, as far as like getting quality looks, et cetera, et cetera. The level of competition he plays against, the quality of the team he plays for, et cetera, et cetera. All of those things kind of worked against him. So it was a rough spring in terms of him getting looked at, getting seen. But I think there was some maturity there as far as not trying to do too much, still willing to walk. Even something as simple as that. You see some of these good hitters press in their high school seasons when they're not getting anything to hit. But being able to stay within himself, continue to rest on what he'd accomplished, understanding that scouts know who he is. We've known him for a long time. This dude can hit. I'm not super worried about the spring. So just kind of having that maturity about him obviously is huge.
Fill in the blank for me here. If we agree Tamar Johnson's the best prep hitter in this class, Tamar Johnson is the best prep hitter since blank. Riley Green, maybe?
Someone in that 19 class probably is what it seems like, right? So,
yeah.
Riley Green, I would say. Or it's Witt, or take your pick, yeah.
Brian, did you consider him at 1 when you had that first pick? And if so, how much?
Yeah, I mean, we're existing in a hypothetical world where signability / bonus demand / whatever aren't real. Like, we're not doing this draft that way where we have to worry about saving money and working against slot and whatever. So yeah, I think he's in that top group along with those prep bats that we've already taken. And I think in the real world, if there's something of a deal to be cut at 1, he would be one of the first people I'd call, if I'm the Orioles. So yeah, absolutely, I considered it.
All right, you have the floor, and you continue at number 5. You speak on behalf of the Nationals' 5th overall pick.
So with the first 4 picks being preps, I kind of have my pick of college now if I want it. Which is, I think, where I'm going to go. I'm considering maybe starting the run on prep arms here, but I don't want to screw Vinny over too bad. So I'm going to go with Brooks Lee from Cal Poly, the shortstop. That's who we have as our top college player right now in the draft. Maybe some medical concerns, maybe not. He missed freshman year, this, that, and the other thing. Dude really hits. He has power. Even if he can't play short, he's going to play third. He's one of those, this dude's going to be a good big leaguer. Maybe he's not an all-star, but he's going to be a good big leaguer, and I think we can get that at number 5 here.
Had a great conversation with Brooks Lee. There's an app, MLB uses it called Synergy. It shows all the video of all the players around the country. Brooks Lee admitted his dad, who's the head coach at Cal Poly, who he plays for, that he stole his dad's login, and he lives watching video, watching himself, watching other great hitters. This guy's a student of the game. Vinny, real quick, your thoughts on Brooks Lee, because he is one of those really unique players. He's a ball player's kid, but got no breaks because of it. But he is a really special, high IQ player with a high bat.
Yeah, in terms of resume building, he's done everything you can really ask for. He's a switch hitter with a good hit tool from both sides. There is some power. Scouts seem to disagree about whether or not he'll stick at shortstop. I don't think that's really too big of a concern whether he plays third or short because he's going to hit at either position. You're talking about a guy who's a really safe bet to not only get to the majors, but potentially move there very quickly.
15 home runs this year, 462 on base, slugged the baseball as well. Vinny, the Marlins, they're waiting to hear what you think. What do you think selecting at 6?
So with the Marlins, I think I'm going to take our first little bit of a maybe overstep, maybe not overstep, but I'm going to take Cam Collier from Chipola. I believe he is the youngest. I mean, he's definitely the youngest college player in this class, but one of the youngest players in this class, and a guy who's done nothing but hit all spring long. He went to Chipola Junior College in North Florida, raked there as a 17-year-old. He's in the Cape Cod League now, raking against 20, 21, 22, 23-year-olds, and it's just a guy who can really hit, and he can do that really, really well. He's got a very good arm. He pitched some this spring, and he can run it up there in velo. He's obviously a position player long term, but that arm's a solid weapon at third base. But it's just the hit power combination I think are really, really special from a really young prospect.
Yeah, I'll wait on your response, Brian, because you had things to say initially when he made that pick. I'll wait on your response.
I was sitting here. I was ready to take Collier at 7 for the Cubs next. But so I think that's a great pick by Vin.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy. We saw him play like the third game of his JUCO career earlier this spring in Panama City Beach. A guy who had a really good year playing. It cannot be over 17 years old playing against it now with COVID 21 and 22-year-old JUCO guys. Holding his own, hitting for power, walking a ton, playing a good third base. He's doing it on the Cape now. He's answering every question you have. I think 6 might even be low at this point on Collier. But yeah, I think that's a great pick.
Yeah.
419 on base this season, played at 17 years old, elite college baseball when you're playing for Coach Johnson and Chipola. Played in 52 games, played all the time under immense pressure. Again, at 17 years old, should have been playing in high school this year. Brian, Cubs, 7. You say what?
Yeah, there were a couple guys that I really loved for the Cubs coming in, but they're both gone. So I'm just going to go with who we have highest remaining on our board, and that is Kevin Parada, the catcher from Georgia Tech. I think he's in play anywhere here in the top 10. Some concerns about him defensively long-term as a catcher. It's kind of just okay receiving. It's kind of a just okay arm, but the guy can really hit. He showed it this year that the power is real. 20-plus home runs, playing in not a small yard. The batted ball data is very, very strong. Even if he has to play somewhere that isn't catcher, his bat should support that. So going to go with Parada there. Should be an impact bat for them shortly.
Yeah, I can remember him running a 6'7", 60 at the National Showcase. So the speed and the athleticism. Vinny, there's plenty of athleticism to put him somewhere on the diamond, maybe even on a corner infield spot, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. He's played a little bit of third base, even dating back to high school. And he's another guy, when you look at kind of the totality of the profile, another example to where, not to belittle this at all, when it's like, where does he play? I don't really care. He plays in the right-handed batter's box. He's going to hit. He's going to hit for power. Third base, first base, left field, catcher, pitcher, for all I care. That guy's going to be hitting in the middle of the lineup for a long time.
Yeah, I love what the choice he made. He made the choice to go to school, left Southern California, went to Georgia Tech, made the most of it, had the built-in challenges, COVID, post-COVID. Good for Kevin Parada and what he has accomplished, in new circumstances for all of us. The Twins pick 8. Vinny, rep them, please.
We've talked a lot about the rules of this draft and how we want to pick based on what we would do in a certain situation. And I see Sakowski smiling because he knows what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the best pitcher in this draft and take Cooper Jerpy from Oregon State. I'm tired of pretending like he's not the obviously best college pitcher in this class. He's up to like mid-90s from that weird unicorn slot. He gets a ton of miss on the fastball. The slider's a plus sweeper. He led the country in strikeouts, the perfect game collegiate pitcher of the year, going to be a Golden Spikes candidate. He just does everything a prototypical prototypical college arm would do to get themselves drafted in the top 15 of the draft, except for the fact that he throws funny.
What does that mean, Brian? How so? I mean, expound upon what he's saying.
Yeah, there's just some like not standard parts of his operation that people nitpick. He does get very cross-body. but at the same time, that adds to the deception. It is a lower arm slot, but at the same time, it's a very low release height. It's a very flat angle to the plate. The fastball, even at 90-92, plays way up because of the quality. Vinnie talked about the slider. The strike throwing's there. The competitiveness is there. I agree with Vin. We've talked about it. This is our board. This is our pick. These are our picks in this particular setting. I haven't seen anybody better. We can guess at Connor Prelip, not to say picks for later, like et cetera, et cetera. We can guess at Whisenhunt. We know what Jerpy is, man, and he's pretty good. I think we're talking about a 3-4 starter there at the very least, and that's kind of getting lost in the trees. How good that is, how valuable that is.
Yeah, and there are question marks about those other two players that you mentioned. That's why Jerpy, healthy. I got to call one of his starts in Tucson, Arizona, maybe his only human start of the year, where he wasn't great, but I could see for those innings all the things that you guys like about him. Great family. Dad caught him until he couldn't catch him anymore for safety reasons. There's just a lot to like there about Cooper Jerpy. Eight picks in the books, and we're going to get going, but we're going to take a break. The Royals are coming up right around the corner. The back and forth continues. One team may pick twice in our next segment. You'll find out who that is. Glad to have you hanging with us on Perfect Game TV, mock draft number 1, heading into the 2022 MLB Amateur Draft.
With the first pick in the
Thanks for hanging out with us. As we take a peek at the board, we can see just one pitcher taken. I know that will change as the Royals get things going. Not predicting the picks, certainly, but in this segment, we'll see some more pitchers taken. Prep Bats doing a lot of the work. The Royals a fun team because of MJ Melendez to work in the big leagues and Bobby Witt stealing all the headlines. Look, he was in front of us 5 days ago, it feels like. He was just playing baseball at PG events. So, Vinnie, represent those Royals if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, we can keep it with the theme of the preps here. This is going to be a slightly controversial pick, but I'm going to go ahead and take Dylan Lesko, prep arm from Georgia here. Obviously, extremely famous prep, the top-ranked pitcher, prep arm on our board, goes down with injury in about mid-April, Tommy John surgery. He'll be out for, I believe, close to 12 months or so from that. So my justification here is that I think that Dylan Lesko is the best pitcher in this prep class, and I think he's one of the best prep arms in the last 10 years. We've talked about this at length. He's into the mid-upper 90s as a right-hander, a pinpoint command, 70 grade changeup, one of the best pitches in the draft period. The breaking ball has made immense strides over 3 years. It could be a plus pitch now. And I think if we're talking about a guy who is this talented, who is this kind of consensus best arm in the last however many years or so, I don't think one Tommy John surgery scares me. Sure, he's hurt, but he, as a prep arm, he probably would have had very, very limited innings in pro ball this year anyway. From a rehab standpoint, he's going to be right on schedule in terms of getting into affiliated ball next year. He's really good, and this one Tommy John surgery doesn't scare me, I think is the point I'm trying to make.
Interesting. Brian, explain to me how much he would already have been managed this year. Let's say that he wouldn't have had that happen. He would have pitched through the playoffs. He would have been throwing at the different combines now. Maybe picked up a couple of PG events. We're seeing other athletes play on 18U teams before the draft. Remind all of us how much he would have been, lack of better words, babied this entire year anyway.
Yeah, there's no – I don't think any of that would have happened even. I don't think he'd be throwing at the combine. I don't think he'd be playing in PG stuff. I don't think he'd be picking up innings for travel ball, whatever. I think it would be a get you through the playoffs. He's done, wrapped up in bubble wrap until pro ball, aside from the medical testing or whatever that would need to go on. But and then you've seen teams who draft prep arms early, regardless of how much they worked in high school baseball in the spring. What would he throw? 20 pro innings this year? Maybe 0. So I think Vin hits the nail on the head there as far as we're not really losing a ton of development time, I don't think here. There's almost an element of getting it out of the way when it comes to Tommy John with pitchers nowadays, as sad as that sounds. I agree with him as far as the upside of Lesko. It's a good pick to take him, in my opinion.
7 times the most valuable pitcher, perfect game events. I'll never forget a couple of years ago, PG's main event right after Christmas. He worked out at short, he worked out at catcher, and he worked out on the mound and performed well at all, and then evolved into an elite pitcher, certainly. The Rockies await. They'll listen to what you have to say here, Brian. You're picking at 10.
Yeah, I think this one actually aligns pretty well with what we'd expect the Rockies to do, as well as what I'm going to do for them. And I'm going to take Jace Young, the second baseman slash defensive home unknown from Texas Tech. Left-handed hitter, brother of Josh, who was the first rounder to the Rangers a couple years ago. Yeah, left-handed bat, really bangs. The approach came together more this year. The walks were up, the strikeouts went down. The power's real. It's a little bit of an awkward defensive fit. We're not really sure. He can kind of make it work at second base, maybe left field, whatever. This is another one of those cases of we're just buying the bat here. We'll figure out the glove later. Would expect him to be a pretty impactful middle-of-the-order presence. And if he were more of a defender, he'd probably go in the top 5 picks, honestly. So,
wow. That's intriguing. And what skews to me is when you look at his numbers, all that power you already talked about, at OPS of almost 1,100, 59 walks, 42 strikeouts this season. So it's a crazy, crazy bat. Because of the Mets and their inability to come to an agreement with Kumar Rocker last year, Vinnie, you're going to rep the Mets twice in this segment. You're going to pick for the Mets at 11. You're going to pick for them at 14. But first up, please represent those New York Mets with your 11th pick.
I'm going to stick with the theme of prep arms here, and I'm going to go with one Brock Porter to the New York Mets. A perfect game All-American, one of the best right-handed pitchers in the country, had a terrific season over at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, who finished undefeated to win a state title. Shouts out to Sac. But Porter's been incredible all spring long. He's been flirting with 100 miles an hour. He's got a disgusting changeup that's a true plus-plus pitch. The breaker, similarly to Lesko, has taken strides. There's a bit more relief risk here just in terms of the overall command and arm action at times. It can be violent, but, I mean, it's one of those where, like, sure, it's violent, but he is so athletic. He gets his body into so many unique positions that I don't really care. But, yeah, he checks all the boxes for a prep arm. He's a cold-weather arm. He's explosive, and he was explosive all spring, and he's been steadily rising in that regard.
Brian, this one feels personal to me. That's why I reacted that way. This is a young man that you've known since he was very, very, very young. You were part of the coaching staff that helped to develop him with Coach Petrie. I got a chance to kind of embed myself in the program for a couple of days. This one feels personal to me. That's why I showed that much shock. Right out from under your Christmas tree, he took your guy.
And I'm picking for the Tigers now, too. Absolutely heartbreaking.
Oh,
yeah, that was heartfelt for Vinnie, wasn't it? My gosh, what an incredible young man! And by the way, kudos to what you left with his life as well. I loved learning that he was a slalom and a giant slalom skier at 9. He stopped that. All you teams out there, he stopped that. He doesn't do that anymore. The athleticism, Vinnie, you touched on it. And what a classy young man. National Gatorade Player of the Year. All right, represent the Tigers, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, this was going to come down to the way the board was shaping up. This was going to come down to Porter or who I'm going to take, and that's Gavin Cross from Virginia Tech, the outfielder. This is a guy that in a year where there's been some fluctuation amongst the college guys on the draft board, arms and bats, this is one of the guys who we entered the spring mocking him to the Tigers at 12 in December, and I'm doing it again here. He kind of held that stock throughout the year. A really impactful left-handed bat. He's a good athlete. There's a chance he can play center, but if not, should be fine in right field. The arm will play from there. Guy who really performed. This is what the Tigers need. I'm sure that they would love Brock Porter to be sitting there or whatever happens, but to get an impact college bat who can rise quickly through the minors and potentially be a big leaguer in a year or two and helping out the big league club now, that's kind of what we're looking for, and I think Cross brings us that.
Yeah, that Virginia Tech club banged, and they banged a lot. Crazy, 128 home runs. He wasn't alone in those double-digit teens home runs. Cross had 17 home runs, and as a freshman was all ACC. No Virginia Tech athlete had ever done that. Because we shake things up with the Mets and Vinnie picking twice, Brian, you'll represent the Angels. If you happen to pick anything besides a pitcher, it'll be the first pitcher, the non-pitcher they've taken since 2020. But I'll leave that up to you. They picked all pitchers last year.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know if they're going to plan to do that again or not. But for me, I'm going to take. Again, I'm going to come down to a couple college bats here when I look at it. But again, this is our draft and our picks, so I'm going to take Zach.
Yes,
I'm going to take Zach Neto, the shortstop. Campbell. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the class, and this is a class that has him ranked comfortably in the first round to everyone. I think he's that good. He's an impactful bat. He can really defend. The peripheral tools play up. He's a leader. He's a grinder, et cetera, whatever those words you want to use are. Dude can just play, and he's a good athlete. And I think there's going to be a race to take him right around here once we get to the actual draft, regardless of where he's ranked. I think there's going to be a race, and I'm going to win it in this version. So Neto to the Angel.
Miami native, young man who took a chance, went up to Campbell from Miami and balled 27 home runs the last 2 years. Zach Neto is now off the board, and you represent those New York Mets, those fabulous Mets again, Vinny, and you do so at number 14.
So now we're going to go back to college, and I'm sure looking over many of the names that the Angels and Brian Sakowski looked over, and we're going to decide on Drew Gilbert because he is that guy, and he plays with a ton of energy, a ton of fire. You love him or you hate him, which was kind of the mantra of the Tennessee team this entire season. But when you're talking about an evaluative sense, you're talking about a guy with plus bat control who can use the whole field. He's going to hit for average. There is power there. He hasn't hit the power is a little bit streaky at times in game, but he definitely has above average raw power. He's an above average runner who's going to stick in center. Like, it's kind of a collection of a lot of tools, and he is just a ball of twitch and athleticism and strength. And like, you talk about undersized quote unquote college outfielders, and everybody always says, "Oh, it's Brett Gardner. Oh, it's Brett Gardner." Well, no, this is like the guy that's probably come the closest in terms of twitch and athleticism to being Brett Gardner.
Ooh. High praise. Drew Gilbert, by the way, 11 home runs this year, 455 on base and slugged almost 700. Minnesota native who played on the collegiate national team last year. San Diego Padres, Brian, pick at 15.
Yeah, so the Padres, I know these are our picks, but I'm going to adopt a little bit of AJ Preller mentality here. The Padres love swinging the bat, swinging for upside. That's what they want to do in the draft. They want to get these dudes with massive tools or massive upside, whatever. We don't care about risk. This is who we're doing. So I'm taking Noah Schultz, who I think has maybe the most upside in the draft on the pitching side. A giant 6'8", 6'9" lefty. This is a conversation we had earlier in the spring. He comes out in his first start up to 98, spinning the breaking ball up to 84. The spin rate stuff's off the charts. He's a 6'9" lefty who throws from a lower slot. Who does that sound like in recorded history? I'll wait. Right, it's Randy Johnson. That's the only guy it sounds like. So and I'm not. It's not a player comp because you can't comp to one of the greatest players of all time. That's just not how that works. But like, if there's one guy who could be, it's Schultz. And the strikes were a bit of a struggle this spring at times. He missed a lot of the spring with mono. Came back. The stuff's there. The command wasn't quite. He's playing in a collegiate summer league and pitching well right now. I'm going with Schultz. I think I can catch lightning in a bottle there.
Vinny, are you surprised? 1, 2, 3, 4 pitchers only taken in the first 15. You guys talked about the bats. Are you surprised only 4 in the first 15 picks, Vinny?
I'm not that surprised. I'm shocked we found a way to get 3 prep arms in there. That seems pretty high. But I think one of the themes of the draft all year has been kind of this absence of college pitching, or healthy college pitching, I should say. Guys like Peyton Pallette, Connor Prelip, we think to be first rounders go down with injuries. But Schultz is, Sack mentioned it, like the upside is Randy Johnson. It's something that we talk about. The reason why we have Elijah Green at number 1 on our board, the upside is the best player we've ever seen. Like, when we're taking in the top 15 picks here, and especially the Padres, they go for upside. They overpaid James Wood last year, I think, with the second pick in the draft, and he looks like a monster in the minor leagues now. So if the upside clicks, you're talking about something special.
Well, keep talking then, and represent Cleveland at number 16, Vinny. Please pick for them.
All right, with the Cleveland Guardians, I'm going to go with a college arm because it feels more of a safer trajectory here, but I'm going to go with Gabriel Hughes from Gonzaga. I think he's kind of a pretty starter tool set, if you would. I know it makes no sense, but he runs the fastball up to 97, 98. He's got a power slider. He really performed this year for a very good Gonzaga team. Definitely caught some fire late. Was throwing very well against tough opponents like San Diego down the stretch. Again, kind of like we talked about with Cooper Jerpy a little bit earlier, but not to the same degree. A guy who did everything he was asked to do in a bit of a smaller conference, but who checks all those boxes for college arm that ends up going in the first round.
Yeah, I love the mid-major men that are making their noise already, and we're just getting past halfway through. Hughes had huge numbers this year on a staff, by the way. In 500 innings, they struck out 600 batters. So he had good guys pushing him, but he in 98 innings had 138 strikeouts out of tiny Eagle, Idaho, where he went where they'd take him, and he made the most of it, and good for him. All right, when we come back, the Phillies are on the board. We're representing our producer, so we better do this careful. Jason Jaquette, our fine producer, representing those Philadelphia Phillies. They need help now. This is the mock draft on Perfect Game TV.
With the first pick in the
Admit it, you're a fan of the future of the game. You've found us, you have to admit it, and we're taking you through the draft. These two minds are very wise in the players they have seen since 14 and 15 years old, Brian Sakowski, Vinnie Cervino. So Brian, 17 is the Philadelphia Phillies. It's been power prep arms the last couple of years. What do you think it'll be this year?
I'm going to stick with the theme. I'm going to go with Brandon Barrera, the left-handed pitcher from South Florida, prep lefty. That breaks the mold. He's a lefty, not a righty, as opposed to Painter and Abel the last 2 years. But this is a guy who we've seen for 4 years. The stuff has progressed. He was up to 98 or 99 this spring. There's flashes of 4+ there at times. Was a little hittable. The fastball shape probably needs a little bit of work, but he's a good athlete. He repeats well. It's a really fast arm. I think there's really good upside there, and this is where we're going to have him on the board. I like the value match.
Yeah, it's interesting, Vinny, because, he received national attention because he decided to protect himself, right? He's done something great. A family originally from Puerto Rico to New York, sat the bench in travel ball for 3 years while he threw it to the backstop like Nuke Lelouch. But now he's figured himself out as he's gotten older. And then he protected his own investment at the end of the year with the blessing of his teammates. I love the fact that he took control of his future, Vinny.
Yeah, it's definitely something I think we could potentially be seeing moving forward. I don't want to get the details wrong, but he, like you mentioned, he decided to shut it down towards the end of the spring and said, guys, hey, I'm done. I did what I had to do. We can do interviews, we can do talks, we can do meetings, but I'm done throwing. And that's interesting to see if that strategy continues to be implemented moving forward.
So Vinny, in our house, and not that it's about our house, it's about the big leagues, but we're a Reds house. We have two teams. The Reds are one of those teams. We hang with them through thin and thin this year. But who in the world are you going to pick representing our Reds? My family's all around. You just can't see them at number 18.
Well, I won't be disappointing your family. So, the Reds are going to go with Daron Sutton here, the catcher from Arizona, one of the better college players in this class, a guy that could go realistically anywhere from here or even before, pretty much starting at the back end of the top 10. He's a power-hitting catcher, 6'5", lots of double power, lots of home run power, was a sensational as a true freshman last year. Another guy like a Kevin Parada, who's a second-year eligible guy. Suzak has big power, and the big question is, will he stick behind the plate? I think it's one of those where I think the bat will provide value even in right field and third base, but he's more athletic of a catcher than some think, even though it's not a slam dunk.
So it's interesting. He did not leave to go to LSU when Jay Johnson did, and he said at the end of their regional, Daniel Susak did, I made two great decisions over the last couple of years. Number one was selecting Arizona, and number two was staying at Arizona with Chip Hale. So kudos to him for how he felt he did things for himself. We just talked about that with a guy in Brandon Barrera owning his own future. Daniel Susak, our home really blesses that. We like him around this house. Perfect Game All-American, by the way. Perfect Game All-American. Number 19 is the Oakland A's. They'd love to get somebody there fast, Brian. How are you going to help them out?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the board here, and they did a pretty good job hitting on a left-handed hitting catcher from NorCal not too long ago in Tyler Soderstrom. So I'm going to go with Malcolm Moore here. In the real world, the general vibe is that he's going to go to Stanford. The signability is going to be really high. In our world, everybody's signing for slot, baby. So we're gonna get Malcolm Moore here. One of the best left-handed bats in the class. Another one of the left-handed prep bats that we've talked so much about. Another guy with, who knows if he's a catcher, We said the same thing about Soderstrom a couple of years ago. As Soderstrom has proven, it really doesn't matter if you bang. I think that's what Malcolm Moore can do. So we're going to go with him there. Good area fit, too.
Yeah, great area fit. He's from Sacramento. He's the number one catcher, Vinny, in all the prep class in 2022 for perfect game. So, Vin, man, why did he earn that ranking over the last couple of years? What do you love about him?
I love the swing. It's really pretty. It's really optimized from the lower half through the hips, and it's violent explosion. My first memory of seeing Malcolm Moore was at the WWBA World Championship in 2020 when we had it in Fort Myers. And he hit 2 home runs on that Canes Prospects team in Terry Park Stadium, which is a crazy place to hit home runs. But yeah, he's done it his whole career. He's really good. It's a pretty left-handed swing, like I mentioned. He should catch at the next level. It's a really good pick if Sack and the A's can get it done on pen to paper.
We watched all kinds of PG All-Americans last year win a World Series, and Ian Anderson was part of it, and Austin Riley, and even Tyler Matzik, who had almost lost his career years ago. He was a PG All-American. We celebrated perfect games representation with the Braves. Now represent some more, Vinny, at number 20. Atlanta selects.
Atlanta's going with Jordan Beck from Tennessee, a guy that we have pretty high on our initial board and kind of crept his way into that top 10 discussion. And I think at the early middle portion of the year has kind of cooled off a little bit more towards the back end of the first 20, probably a little bit high at this point. Early on in the spring, he was just a barrel machine. It was very consistent. People started whispering, the 6'4" kid who's built that way, that physicality. It's like, oh man, are we talking about an Aaron Judge? And now I think it's more, we're realizing as we get the complete picture, it's more of a project, more of a player development kind of thing that the player development, multiple ball play that they can kind of do what they want with, but it's really good raw power, it's really good exit velocity. He's a very good athlete for his size. He should be able to not only stick in right field, but be an above average defender in right field. He's got a very good arm. College corner infielder, he just kind of checks all those boxes in terms of tools and performance.
Yeah, nearly a 600 slug, 33 home runs last 2 years. Swing and misses there, 62 strikeouts, but an athlete who is aggressive going after the baseball. Brian, Seattle picks at number 21.
Yeah, this is as we get further down the board, I think you're going to see more extreme examples of what we'd do versus what the team would do. Because I think everybody's working from similar lists in the top 5 or top 10. So with the Mariners, I'm going to go with Jackson Ferris here, who I think has fallen too far given how we value him. He's a popular name in the world of floating a prep arm down to the compound or whatever. And I think that may happen in the real world. But here I'm going with the guy who's highest on our board, IMG guy who really performed pretty much every time out. It's into the mid-90s. It's a really good fastball with rise, a good left-handed slot. It's funky. It's a plus breaking ball. There's flashes of an above-average changeup there. It's not the prettiest operation you've ever seen in your life, but he's a strike thrower. It's a good body. I think this is what prep arms are supposed to look like, and Ferris may be the victim of scouting, as it were. Vinny, you're a Florida guy. You're right there by IMG. It feels like guys maybe have seen him too much, and we're starting to take the shine off of how good he actually is.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him 4 times this spring, and it's just been very consistent, right? 93, 95 early, kind of sitting 91, 92, 93 the rest of the outing. Breaking ball projects as plus. Changeup was used more as we got closer to the end of the season, but has good traits and good qualities. I think he just needs to throw it more. Definitely an example of a guy that you kind of have to pinch yourself and be like, oh, no, wait, this is really good, even if it's not the best start I've seen him make before. But a guy who's been ultra consistent and, like you said, checks every box for a prep arm, especially an arm that we've seen as much as Ferris with our own eyes.
Made the choice to move from Mount Airy, North Carolina, with COVID shaking things up, seasons being lost. Missed every moment that he was away from home at IMG. Family means a lot to him, but really took advantage of that time with IMG. We saw him at the high school showdown. That's when I saw him in person. Yikes, big time stuff. Cardinals, pick at number 22, Vinny.
So something I alluded to at the top of the show, and I'm going to kind of make good on this promise now, is I'm taking the hottest hitter on the planet, which is Peyton Graham right now from Oklahoma. The Sooners, who are in the College World Series final, Peyton Graham has been unstoppable since about the middle of the season. It's incredible raw power. really good athleticism. He can move at shortstop. He's a big-bodied guy. He's got a plus arm. People might think he might have to move off of shortstop to third base because he's going to get too big, because the frame is kind of one that you're like, oh, you can add 40 pounds, not 15 pounds. I don't know if that's the case. He's a really good athlete with body control. The long levers are always going to make swing and miss there, but he's been as hot as anybody on the planet right now.
What is it, 31 home runs last couple of years, and a 20 home run season to Texas native Peyton Graham. We've enjoyed watching what another PG alum has done, grabbing a spot in that infield, and Nolan Gorman, who is a prep pick with the St. Louis Cardinals. The Toronto Blue Jays, Brian, pick at number 23.
Yeah, I've been that one actually threw me through for a loop a little bit, Vin. I'm going to be honest with you. But anyways, I'm going to stick to the board here with the Blue Jays. I'm going to go with Chase DeLauder from James Madison. This is a guy who came into the spring as a potential 1-1 pick. It's well documented. He got his doors blown off the first weekend of the season. They went down to Florida State. He played in a hostile environment, saw two of the best lefties in the class to this day, in Hubbard and Messick, and struggled. But then after that, he hit like 450 with a ton of power. And he broke his foot, missed the rest of the season. That was unfortunate. I think with continued elite performance, we'd be taking him way higher than this. I still think he's got a chance to go higher than this. But as far as for my money at this point, I'll take the athlete, the right field profile, the left-handed power, and the guy knows how to draw walks. So it sounds pretty good to me.
And the best player on the Cape last year.
Yeah, 576 on base, 6'5", 235. Great time in the Cape, as was said. I'm not going to let you go without finishing up your amount that you were thrown for a loop on that Peyton Graham pick, because you said you were thrown for a loop. Just one more thought on what you meant there, because we can't just insinuate things. We have to be real here.
Yeah, well, the reason is, if I'm being honest, Vinnie kind of nuked Peyton Graham when he saw him early in the season. Graham did not have a good start to the year. He did not have a good start to the year. That's an objective fact. And Vinnie came away from his look going, fourth round. Swings and misses a ton. It's steep. It's uppercutty. So I'm proud of you for seeing the players get better and adjusting your grade appropriately. I just was like, that threw me for a loop.
I've been watching him in the College World Series, and he's been unbelievable. Just everything's been barreled up, even if it's out.
Very, very paternal. That was like a father figure choice. You gave your young man a chance to grow up, and he did. And we mean this, Mr. Graham, with a lot of fun and respect for what you've accomplished, obviously. Vinnie, you will take us to break, and do so by selecting for the Boston Red Sox at number 24.
So I'm looking over the board that we kind of have here, the picks that have been made, and I realize the demographics are all over the place. So let's just get weirder. I'm going to take Robbie Snelling and make it a fourth high school lefty in the top 24 picks. Snelling, a perfect game All-American, has that gridiron athleticism. You're talking about a high schooler that's probably, from a statistical standpoint, the best strike thrower since like Gunnar Hoagland 5 years ago when he was a prep. It's been anywhere from 92 to 97. Fills up the strike zone. Breaking ball's good. It's a good pitch. Left-handed. A lot of upside to like here from Robbie Snelling, and the numbers out of high school this year have been just unbelievable in terms of strikes.
Brian, that makes him a massive riser. Let's say if I'm going to include like the last 36 months, like a crazy massive riser. Great linebacker on the football field too, but that makes him a guy that is like climbed up the skyscraper.
Yeah, and it's something that we don't see all that often, but he was brought to us as, here's this freak football player. Watch him. He's also pretty good at baseball, but it's still mostly football. That's, how he was brought to us. Usually for these guys that become baseball prospects, it's the other way around. It's like, oh, he's really, really a natural at baseball, but he's also a freak on the football field. This was the opposite of that. And it was kind of like Bubba Chandler last year in the first round, as a guy who was a really highly sought after football player who became a dude baseball player over the course of his senior year, focused on development in that way. Snelling always had big stuff. We made him an All-American for a reason, but the command, the strikes, the operation, the consistency this spring, he's going to be a first rounder, and that's why.
LSU commit, a Reno, Nevada native, great football player, McQueen High School, great baseball player too. All right, when we come back, we'll select for the rivals, the Yankees. We're getting you set for the MLB Amateur Draft right here on Perfect Game TV. You're learning about the very best players heading into the draft. And why are they the best? Because we're mocking up the first round with Vinnie and Brian. And we did the Red Sox before we went to break. The Red Sox picked at 24. Picking at number 25 is the New York Yankees. And Brian, you will represent the New York Yankees.
Yeah, I think once you get into the 20s, it starts to be about who fell and why. Is that potentially some sort of value that I can maximize? And I think for the Yankees, for me here, I'm taking Connor Prelip, the lefty from Alabama. A Tommy John guy, as we know, really doesn't have a whole lot of a track record. Started 2020 looking like he was going to be 1-1 in 2022. Then COVID happened. Then he missed basically all of 2021, missed all of 2022. He's thrown some bullpens, this, that, and the other thing. If my medical team is telling me this guy's healthy, if the data checks out from his bullpens, this is a guy who I think's upside is way higher than that of the 25th overall pick. So feel comfortable here taking a little bit of a risk on the injury. And yeah, I'm going to go with Prelip and feel good about it.
Yeah, what Brian's talking about, 28 total college innings. They were explosive, 47 strikeouts, did throw at the combines, threw well. He's a Wisconsin native, didn't pitch as much as Coach Bohanna would have liked at Alabama, certainly when he was there. Number 26, Vinny, is the Chicago White Sox.
I'm going to go with a pick here that gives you a lot of upside, an upside that I don't think you can necessarily get at 26 all the time, and it's Justin Crawford, outfielder from out west in Nevada. Really good bat to ball, explosive twitch, obviously 80 grade runner, maybe better. Maybe he's a 90 runner if you believe in 90s. It's explosive speed. He can defend in center field. There is power there. The approach is not really built to get to a lot of that power. He still hits balls hard frequently, but with less loft. But there is raw power, and he can get to it. I think it's a guy who underratedly will be hitting for more home runs than people think when he gets to the pro ball. But obviously the speed, the twitch, the defensive ability are carrying here.
Brian, a lot taller than his dad, Carl Crawford, who had a very lengthy and successful major league career. But just another guy that seemed to, you scouts use that word helium, seemed to really explode over the last 2 years.
Yeah, you're seeing the effects of power coming into the game. This was a dude who didn't just become an elite runner a year ago. That's always been the case. He's always had the kind of slash and dash ability at the plate to put bat on ball and end up with a triple eventually because he's just going to steal the bags if he has to. But kind of as he's added power to his frame, as that left-handed swing is produced more over the fence stuff, higher exit velocities, we're seeing him as a more complete player. And I agree with Vinny that his upside is greater than the 26th best player in the class. So a good pick from my end.
Wow, interesting and intriguing pick. Excited to see what his future holds as much as he has exploded. Brian, the Milwaukee Brewers at 27 select?
Yeah, this is another one where I'm looking at our board, and this board hasn't been totally updated yet, so it's not exactly how we'd have it. And there's some guys still left here, but I'm going to go with a guy who had kind of an up and down spring, but when I saw him, it was top 5 pick caliber stuff. So I'm going to go with Andrew Dukanich, the right-handed pitcher from Indianapolis, high school kid, another PG All-American. There was some issues with strikes a little later on in the year. He had some back-to-back rough outings, whatever it was. When I saw him, and granted, one game look does not make a spring, but when I saw him, it was up to 97, 98, holding it the whole way, plus slider at times, plus breaking ball. Changeup's there. It's a great body. He filled it up. Explosive arm. I know I'm going on with superlatives, but a dude whose upside I think is vast. And even with the rough patches this spring, I'm still very in on it.
Yeah, the adjective I think of, and not sure if it's even the proper one, is constantly developing, and that's maybe a verb thrown in there as well. But he threw 82 at a perfect game event in 2018. You've described who he is now, so the development is a lot of fun to watch. Vinny, the Astros at number 28. Just a couple of more picks left. You rep those Houston Astros, please.
We talked about it earlier. I'm going to try to juice these numbers as good as I can. Following the Duke at 27, I'm going to go ahead and fire in another prep arm. Give me Walter Ford from Pace, Florida. A 2023 reclass up to 2022 that last fall. Played with USA Baseball in the fall. Really took steps forward. This spring kind of mostly honed in on that pitching craft. There's a ton of upside when you're talking about a 17-year-old kid who throws 97, 98 with an over 3,200 spinning breaking ball. A lot of components here to work with. He's a confident kid. The slider has a chance to be one of the best in this draft class, and the fastball's got big velo already, so a lot of tools to work with for a progressive org like the Astros in that regard when it comes to pitch design.
Brian, does it mean anything to you if I just say the simple sentence, if I bump into you in a Starbucks and I simply say, hey, this guy, this Ford guy, he's a good pitcher, but he's a good athlete too. Probably could play in the infield if you need him. Does the concept of his athleticism mean something to you?
Absolutely. And it's any good pitching coach, any good whatever will tell you that athleticism directly portends to how you're able to repeat your delivery and therefore how well you're able to command the strike zone. And it's not an exact one-to-one correlation. There's a lot of factors involved with all of that. But generally speaking, the better the athlete, the better chance for good command. And Ford is a guy with something of a violent delivery. The stuff is ahead of the polish as it goes. But big-time stuff, like Vinnie said, very, very good athlete with still a long ways to go in his developmental trajectory. A guy it's easy to bet on in that sense. So absolutely.
He will be 17 and 1/2 years old the night of the draft. It's incredible how young he is. What a bold decision to reclassify. Tampa, Brian picks at number 29.
Yeah, Tampa usually does a pretty good job of just being smarter than everybody. And I don't know if this is if this is going to count for them as being smarter than everybody. But I'm going to take Tucker Tillman, a prep bat, South Carolina guy. I love this. We always have. It's a super loose swing, especially left-handed. There's plus bat speed. He's got power there. He was a better mover this spring as far as athletically. It looked more like there's a chance to play third base long-term. And given Tampa's ability to develop guys, I think we're looking at a potential monster of power left-handed hitting third baseman.
Wow, Tucker Tolman selected there, LSU commit, and just a unique player. Hammond High School in Columbia, South Carolina, as you mentioned, PG All-American. We also saw him a couple years back at the Perfect Game Select Festival. Number 30, Vinny, is the San Francisco Giants. Beautiful ballpark by the Bay. Who will they see in the big leagues in 3 or 4 or 5 years? Who are you picking?
Giants are going to go with Texas native Jet Williams here. A guy who we like a lot, and based on what we've been told, is probably in play about 15 or 20 spots higher than this even. Probably started right around the mid-teens there. He's an explosive athlete. He's not very big, right? He's about 5'7", 5'8", but he's like a muscle hamster physically. He's super jacked. He's extremely twitchy. He wears like cutoff shirts, short shorts during PP. He's awesome, but he can bang with the bat. And that overall athletic profile coupled with the hit tool makes for a very good player. Like the underlying batted ball data is good. He hits the ball really hard. He hits it optimally with a good launch angle. He's going to develop into a good player, but again, like it's almost been kind of a common theme with some of these picks today, he's the 5'7" guy, so maybe teams weren't initially like, oh, he could be a first rounder. No, at this point, he's a pretty solid first rounder.
Interesting. He's kind of been explosive. This is a guy that I think people will look back and say maybe should have been a perfect game All-American. He threw 92 off the mound at a PG event, Vinny. This is a guy, and Brian too. I'll let you comment on it, Brian. Brian, this is just a crazy athlete, huh?
Yeah, and it came out, it kind of on the circuit last summer, the stature kind of made more of is he a second baseman question come into play. You see the same stuff with Termar. It's lazy. I think Tamar's got a chance to play short. I think Jet Williams has a chance to play shortstop and be a really good one. Like you said, Sut, the arm strength stands out even from a smaller guy. Vinny talked about the batted ball data. He hits balls really hard. He's very, very high-level contact guy in terms of contact consistency and contact quality. And again, to echo Vinny's point, I think he goes, in reality, probably 10 or 15 spots higher than this.
Vinny, as we record this show, it's your birthday, and so happy birthday to you, and
Thanks,
congratulations
guys.
on many, many more years. And as a birthday gift, we want you to represent, okay? The Dodgers have not been represented at all, and I really feel the need for you to represent the Dodgers. You know, make sure that you do a nice job in doing so. Represent those Dodgers. They're an important team to me for obvious reasons. So at 40, the Dodgers will pick Everyone at Dodger Stadium is very excited to see who you pick. So who do you want at 40, Vinnie?
We'll go with a good one. We'll go with state champion and perfect game All-American Roman Anthony from Stoneman Douglas High School. Had basically about as good a spring as you can as a prep in one of the toughest classifications in the country, being in that class in Florida. Anthony was terrific all spring. He's 6'4", 6'3", big-bodied, athletic, and physical. Left-hand hitting outfielder, hit some absolute moonshots all spring. He's got a plus arm. He'll get out there in center. He may get too big for center. This is a guy that we're talking about, hit a ball, I think it was like 420-plus feet in Coors Field last summer at the MLB All-Star Game. So a guy that could potentially be that 70-grade power, a guy who's probably not unlike Cody Bellinger in some ways.
Yeah, Roman Anthony and what he did at Stoneman Douglas, loaded. They are top to bottom. Thank you for representing my Dodgers. I really appreciate that, man. So it's interesting. I'll ask you first, Brian. Who made the best pick in this draft, and what was the best pick? Value for value, slot for slot, dollar for dollar. I got Green going 1. I got Jones going 2. I got Jet Williams going at 30. What pick do you love the most? It doesn't have to be yours.
Well, it will be. But anyways, I thought that getting the best player at 1 was one of the best picks in the draft. I thought that my pick of Zach Neto at 13 to the Angels was a really good one. I think that he's going to be very sought after. And to give credit to Vinnie, I think getting Snelling at 24 was a great pick. I thought that getting Susac all the way down at 18 was a great pick. And I think Jet Williams' value relative to the board is outstanding.
Vinnie, who did you guys miss?
So some guys that I think talked about definitely on this initial list that could definitely go in that top first-round range. Dylan Beavers, outfielder from Cal. Sterling Thompson, infielder/outfielder from Florida. Blade Tidwell was another guy who started out injured early in the season, had some shoulder soreness, came back, ended up throwing 97, 98 towards the end of the spring, really solidifying the Tennessee staff. And then Jacob Berry from LSU, transferred to LSU with head coach Jay Johnson, was a freshman, unanimous freshman All-American, big power from both sides of the plate. Questions about where he ends up defensively.
Brian, I'll let you follow up and put a bow on this show with that question. What are some of the names that you look forward to hearing called, even if they're not in the first round? Some of your favorite prospects you've seen, college, high school, over the last year.
I thought about taking Jacob Campbell with one of my last 2 picks. I think that's a guy who maybe is a little undervalued because there's nothing overwhelmingly like plus about the profile, but everything's kind of above average 2+. He does a lot of things well. He does a lot of things that are unique for him. So I think he was going to get called pretty soon. Owen Murphy, the 2-way prep from the Chicago area. Think most people think he's an arm, but he's such a good hitter too. He's very similar to Jack Brannigan at Notre Dame as far as places where he's committed. Just looking at the board here, I have to talk about Spencer Jones from Vanderbilt, the left-handed bat. That's a guy I like a lot. Vinnie likes a lot. He's huge and he's really athletic. He has an extreme amount of raw power. 30 pick.
Yeah, when I thought about Jones, I literally thought about O'Neal Cruz and what he is doing now, splashing in with the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's that kind of athleticism at that kind of height. I'm most excited of all the guys that you talked about, excited about all of them. I'm most excited to see the future of Ike Irish, catcher, Orchard Lake St. Mary's Prep, won another state championship, was a part of catching the aforementioned Brock Porter. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sutton. Thanks,
Sutton.
Draft coming up July 17th through the 19th, and you've been watching these players not only through perfectgame.org for the last half decade of their career, but right here on Perfect Game TV. That puts a bow on mock draft number 1. We can't wait to see what comes around the corner for all of these athletes.